Great. Good morning, everybody. All right. Well, welcome on this Monday morning. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Kristen Baisden, and I'm a school psychologist in the Roseville City School District. I have been a practicing psychologist for 17 years now, and I have two kids. And my two kids, I have a 19-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. And God knew we needed balance in the household because my 19-year-old daughter is the more strong-willed daughter. And my son is just more the old soul, laid back. And so it's nice to have that balance in the house. I have been a positive discipline parent educator and teacher educator. And I've been teaching parenting classes for the last 17 years. And I'll talk a little bit about positive discipline and provide you guys with some tools and some ideas that will just help energize you and just kind of put the fun back into parenting right now and just kind of give you a different perspective. A few other things, because I'm talking about this and sharing this with you because I'll talk about why later, but I am I also teach at Sac State in the school psychology department, so I'm an adjunct professor at Sac State. And if you notice a common theme here, I have multiple jobs, and so I feel like I'm a little bit of a job hoarder. And this whole thing that has happened globally has really put things back into perspective for me. I'm also the founder of Let's Mesh, and it's really bridging that home, school, and medical community to come together. So I do some presentations with others on autism, ADHD, executive functioning, and things of that sort. I want to thank the MOPS group for inviting me out again to talk virtually this time. I was out at MOPS probably in the fall, if I recall, and great group of moms. So I just want to thank you guys for having me back out to just kind of give some ideas and some tools working with our kids now that we're at home. All right, so I have some notes here that I just want to make sure I cover some key points based on some of these, the questions that I've already received. I do want to just stress right now, during this time, this global pandemic, we want to give ourselves some grace at this time. Nobody is expecting you to be perfect. As a parent and now as a teacher trying to teach our kids at home. So we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for progress. And even if it's small progress, that's progress. So just keep that in mind as you navigate through these next several weeks, maybe even next several months with the shelter in place. I like to say relax your standards to a level that's appropriate for you during this global pandemic. That pertains to not just parenting, but everything that's going on in our house. We've got maybe multiple adults working from home, so we all have our different spaces that we're working out of. So keep that in mind as we navigate through. We're not looking for perfection, and there is no perfect parent. And I for sure, even teaching for the last 17 years parenting classes, I am very transparent in my parenting, and I like to share just some flaws that I even have. We'll talk about like brainstem versus frontal lobe. When we lose our cool as parents, how do we recover from that? I want to also echo what Paul and Bonnie spoke about last Monday, and all the points, I just echo everything that they said about the routines and the self-care and the family time. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on those topics. And I also just want to acknowledge that this level of anxiety that we have right now, that we're dealing with as the adults, we just want to try to, I should say, look for some strategies as adults that we can calm ourselves, because we're modeling that for our kids, because our calm is contagious. So how can we be calm in the storm? How can we embed calm moments throughout our day and days? So I want to invite you to think about 3 questions, and feel free to jot them in the comments section. So this is a good reflection activity that I like to do in the morning, first thing when I wake up, because it sets my day. Here are the 3 questions that I like to ask myself. Is 1, today I am grateful for. So think about that right now. Today, what are you grateful for? If you haven't grabbed a pen and a paper, grab a pen and a paper, if that's going to be helpful for you to reference in the future. What are you grateful for today? And then today I will do this one thing. What is one thing that you will do? Think about that. So if it's like a project around the house, a task that's been on your to-do list, think about that. And then the last question is, today I will let go. What is something that you can let go of today? Maybe a messy house, that pile of laundry that's off in the corner. So think about that. What is one thing that you can let go? So the 3 questions again, if you were writing them down, is today I am grateful for. Today I will do one thing. And today I will let go. Maybe put it on a sticky note and place it somewhere by your bed. And that should be the first thing that you think about in the morning when you wake up, because we're hardwiring our brain. We're connecting the neural pathways in our brain. So when we're positive, we tend to be more positive throughout the day. Kristen Neff is a psychologist. I don't want to throw a lot of resources out to you guys, because I know that you're probably inundated with so many different resources. But I do want to talk about some key important people that have influenced my life and in my practice. Kristen Neff talks about self-compassion and self-care. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But Kristen Neff also talks about like moments throughout the day. And how can we, here are 3 other, going back to Kristen Neff about the self-care and self-compassion. Thinking positive. So I want to invite you to think from a different perspective based on what I'm going to share with you today. It can be kind of counterintuitive because we are living in such a stressful time right now, which brings us into a fight or flight mode. And I'll talk about the 2 parts of the brain in just a second. But when we're practicing gratitude in the morning, it's also recommended that you practice gratitude at night too. Because what tends to happen during the day, your calmest time is in the morning when you wake up. And you tend to end the day reflecting on the day, and can lead to negative thoughts. So if we are able to also practice in the evening something we're grateful for, that's another great tool that can fuel us, rewiring our brain. So let's talk about 2 parts of the brain right now. So we've got something right up front here. It's called frontal lobe. Frontal lobe has to do with thinking, reasoning, problem solving, self-control, self-regulation, amongst many other things. Back here, you have something called brainstem. Brainstem is fight or flight survival mode. So think about this right now. Right now, we are in such a stressful time. And when we were watching the news, when COVID-19, the numbers start increasing, how many people are diagnosed, how many people are dying, it tends to shoot us where? Into brainstem. Frontal lobe, thinking, reasoning, problem solving, self-control, and self-regulation are all skills. How do our kids get good at practicing? How do our kids get good at those skills is by practicing. So then we have what's called brainstem, which is fight or flight survival mode. So when we're stressed, when we're angry, when we're lecturing, threatening, or warning our kids, where do we tend to be? In brainstem or frontal lobe, which would be brainstem. Where are our kids when we're lecturing, threatening, and warning them? When we're angry and frustrated? Our kids are also in brainstem. So let's talk about that misbehavior cycle. So here are some sound bites I want to share with you and invite you to think about these different tools that I'll be talking about, but I want to invite you to think about this misbehavior cycle. Anger and frustration feed misbehavior. So how do we break the misbehavior cycle? By laying in a strong dose of empathy when we're angry and frustrated. Can be super hard to do, especially during this time. Everybody's cooped up. Everyone's on top of each other. That's a skill. How do we shift then from brainstem to frontal lobe? What works best for us? Because what we're modeling, what we're doing, and how we're handling our stress and anger and frustration, we're modeling that for our kids. How do we move? Take a minute, and if you can go ahead and make a comment, go ahead and type in a comment. How do you as an adult shift from brainstem to frontal lobe? When you're in fight, flight, or freeze in brainstem, how do you shift to frontal lobe? What works best for you? Because what works best for me may not work best for you. Some parents have shared with me over the years of teaching these parenting classes are taking breaks, removing yourself from the situation. Another thing to shift from brainstem to frontal lobe, deep breaths, counting backwards, doing a different activity but not engaging. Our kids right now take deep breaths. I see somebody had commented, yes, take deep breaths. For me, when I'm in brainstem, it was just modeled for me growing up, because when my parents were angry or frustrated, shot me straight into brainstem. And what happens when we're frustrated and we're in brainstem, we tend to go into lectures, threats, and warnings with our kids. Anger and frustration. There's no clear thinking going on. So for me, just like Jenna, yes, I have to remove myself from the situation. I need to take a break. And I have said that in the past with my kids when they were younger. Like I said, my kids are now almost young adults and a teenager I have. So I need to remove myself from the situation. Removing myself from the situation helps me shift from that brainstem to frontal lobe. And isn't it interesting that I've been modeling this throughout the years with my kids, that more so Brittany, because she's the more strong-willed one, but when she gets angry or frustrated, she will say to me and just kind of hold her hand up and say, you know what, I need a break right now. And she'll remove herself and she'll go to her room. Almost the same verbiage as what I used when the kids were growing up. So brainstem versus frontal lobe. The goal is, how can we keep kids in frontal lobe? We have in the palm of our hand to make or break a situation, to be successful or not successful, a learning opportunity or not a learning opportunity, by what we say and how we say it. I can inadvertently shoot, just like you guys, anybody into brainstem if we wanted, by what we say and how we say it. So if we bark orders, tell others, our kids, what to do, 9 times out of 10, they want to do the opposite. So how do we raise the odds of keeping kids in brainstem? Here's a tool I'll give you right now. I will statements. So instead of telling kids what to do or telling others what to do, tell them what you will do or what you will allow instead. For example, with the young ones, because I know we're talking about the preschoolers, preschool age, even elementary age kids, is when we tell kids what to do, they want to do the opposite. So let's give some examples here. Tell me if this, go ahead and make a comment if this puts somebody into brainstem or if it puts a kid into frontal lobe. For crying out loud, how many times have I told you to pick up your toys? Think about that tone of voice. Notice my tone, notice my facial expression. Usually I'm more angry than that. But think about the tone, think about the facial expression, think about the command that I just gave. It raises the odds in that situation to put kids into brainstem. Now, how can we shift that and raise the odds of putting kids into frontal lobe? They're the I will statements. I will be happy to fill in the blank as soon as you pick up your toys. So I will be happy to make lunch for you as soon as your toys are picked up. I will be happy to take you outside as soon as your toys are picked up. I will be happy to read you a book as soon as your toys are picked up. It raises the odds. It just takes the fight out of situations. So it's just something to consider when we're thinking about giving a command or a demand. Think about instead using these I will statements. What about with a significant other? What are some I will statements we can do with a significant other? One of my famous ones that I use to this day as an example is my husband has the job of taking out the garbage. And sometimes the garbage bags will get full, so I'll pull them out and put them off to the side. And then the next one gets full, but the other one hasn't gone away yet. We're gonna pull it out, tie it up, put it off to the side. If he is wanting a cup of coffee, which is very common daily, especially these days, he'll say, oh, hey, sweetie, could you make me that cup of delicious pumpkin spice latte or the froth coffee that you always make? What's a good I will statement for him not taking out the garbage? Instead of saying, for crying out loud, how many times do I have to tell you to take the garbage out? This is the 4th time. I'm now tripping over it and now it's leaking. How about this? Experiment with, and I can be a little sarcastic here because it's my sense of humor with my husband. With my kids can read sarcasm, so I would avoid that at all costs. So with my husband, oh, sweetie, I would be happy to make you that cup of coffee as soon as the garbage is taken out. Love you. It's received better, right? You're still getting the message across. These I will statements are so powerful. I'll share with you a few of my favorite ones. I'll be happy to talk with you as soon as your voice is as calm as mine. I like to have a flat, neutral affect, not angry, not sarcastic or smiling, but I'll be happy to talk with you as soon as your voice is as calm as mine. I'll be happy to talk with you as soon as I feel treated with respect. I'll be happy to do fun things for you as soon as your jobs are done. So I will statements, super powerful. I'll be happy to, I'll give you some examples as toddlers. I'll be happy to read you a book as soon as your pajamas are on. I'll be happy to take you to the park, or I'll be happy to take you on a bike ride as soon as your room is picked up. So these are just some I will statements that you can experiment with. Raises the odds of keeping kids in brainstem, and it takes the fight out of situations, which leads me to kids who are arguing with us or significant others now that we're home a little bit more with them. Think about minimal words as possible. So this is another soundbite with kids. We want kids to do the majority of the thinking, decision-making, and problem-solving that does not affect me or the rest of the family, because thinking is a skill. Reasoning is a skill. Decision-making is a skill. I want kids to practice this as early on as possible so they can get good at thinking. and problem solving. Okay, so I was talking about shifting from brainstem to frontal lobe. So what works best for us? How do we model this for our kids when we're angry or frustrated? Another tool I like to give for this brainstem versus frontal lobe kind of lesson that I teach teachers in the classroom and with parents is the anger thermometer. Goes really well with this. So the website, you can get a free anger thermometer on do2learn.org. So do, the number 2, learn.org. You can print off an anxiety thermometer and an anger thermometer. And it's a 4-point thermometer. So 1 down at the bottom, 2, 3, and 4 is when we're enraged, if this is the anger thermometer. 1 is when we're happy, 2 is we're frustrated, 3 is we're mad, and 4 is we're enraged or furious, whatever you want to call it. I recommend the whole household having this anger thermometer or anxiety thermometer during this time. It's a great tool because it's all about teaching kids how to shift from brainstem to frontal lobe. It helps them shift from, if we're at a 4, how do we get to a 1? The goal is to teach kids young, even in preschool, I have taught this lesson. In kindergarten, I have taught this lesson. How do we shift from a 4 to a 1? So we go over this. It helps kids identify their feelings. So what am I feeling when I'm at a 2, when I'm frustrated? What am I feeling? What physiological what's going on in my body? Is my heart pounding? Is my face getting red? It helps kids identify and then name it. So we call it name it to tame it. So when we're at a 4, how do we shift to a 1? So this anger thermometer is it's like a 4-pager because it really walks you through, which is really nice. It talks about coping strategies. So when a kid is at a 4, so I recommend doing this as a family activity. So when I'm at a 4, how do I shift to a 1? So what works best for me? So when I'm at a 4 and enraged, I shared already with you guys, I need to take a break. I need to go to my calming space. For kids, I like to generate some ideas. Here's a great magic phrase for kids. When you have ideas of your own, but you don't want to share these ideas with the kids, because if you share them as your ideas, most times our kids will shoot them down. They're not good ideas. So instead, I'll say something like, would you like to hear what some kids have tried? Do you notice how I just asked a question, would you like to hear? I say that because questions generate thinking. Commands and demands place kids in brainstem. So questions generate thinking, and I'm checking for compliance. So we want to do this activity when everybody's in the microsecond of a good mood, right? When everyone's in a good mood, we're sitting around and we all have our own anger thermometer, parents and kids alike. And we go through this anger thermometer and we generate ideas. So that magic phrase, would you like to hear what some kids have tried? Some kids decide when they're at a 4 to shift back to a 1, they like to do another activity. Some kids like to jump on the trampoline. Some kids like to write in their journals. Some kids and as you're giving ideas, and you're not rapid firing all these ideas at once, some kids like to jump on the trampoline. This is how I would say it. How would that work for you? Stupid, I would never do that. Okay. Some kids also may like to color. Some kids may like to read. So you're generating ideas. I think you get the point, is you're trying to teach these coping strategies of shifting from brainstem to frontal lobe. Here's another great tool as we're doing this, is thinking about our calming space or a calming corner. I highly recommend at home that everybody has their own safe space or calming space, whatever you want to call it. And this calming space allows kids, disclaimer, it is not a place of punishment. We're not calling it, you can call it what you want, but you don't want it to be negative. So this is a place it's a tool for me to go when I'm in brainstem and I need to cool down to go to frontal lobe. So I'm going to go to my own calming space. And this calming space can be in their bedroom. This calming space could be in a guest room. It can be wherever it is. But you're setting the expectations that this is not a place of punishment. This is just a time to cool down. And you may want to have that anger thermometer in there. So you may want to have a few copies of the anger thermometer, one on the refrigerator, one on the bedroom door, one in the family room, but one in the calming space. But it allows kids then to go to the calming corner and calm down, because that is a skill shifting from brainstem to frontal lobe. Okay, hope that was a little bit helpful. Another thing for the calming corner that I wanted to talk about was having a calming menu. So with these coping strategies, going over a list of, what are some things that help calm me? One for adults again, and one for kids as well. I like this. This is another great tool. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but this is a wheel choice, and this is something, and I can send, I have a bunch of resources that I was going to send Jenny, and she was going to send it out to all the MOPS leaders. So this one here is the wheel of choice, a problem solving wheel, which is great. You can also have a choice wheel, which allows kids to, they can make it themselves. You can make it into like a little pinwheel, put it on like a paper plate, and they can spin it with a little arrow. But a calming wheel, a calming basket. So maybe having fidgets in a basket, or a book, like a calming book. Kids may want weighted blankets, a weighted lappy that goes on their lap, a really great fuzzy blanket. So making their calming corner special and unique to them. Teaching coping strategies. Okay, so let me get to the next topic that I want to talk about is family meetings. So family meetings is a key component with positive discipline. And I would just want to talk a little bit about what positive discipline is about. Positive discipline is a research-based curriculum. It's been around since like 1977. And Jane Nelson is the one who established or came up with positive discipline, and is based off of Alfred Adler's work and Rudolf Dreikurs. And they were both Viennese psychiatrists back in the 1920s and 30s, and their work is still valid today. They talk about all people should be treated with respect and dignity, and that's parents and kids alike. So we talk about kindness and firmness. How can we be kind and firm at the same time? If we're too kind and we're not firm, it's more permissive parenting. If we're too firm and not kind, it's more the authoritarian type of parenting. So how can we balance that kindness and firmness? How can we set these limits and parameters around kids in a loving way and show that we're loving authority figures? So let me jump to these family meetings. So the family meetings it's a time for a family to come together, and we have time obviously on our hands with everybody being home. And the family meetings should only last about 10 to 20 minutes. And even preschoolers can get involved with this. There's an agenda, and you can start off with compliments and appreciation. And at first it feels a little maybe awkward if you haven't done something like this before, because it's filling each other's buckets. It's really focusing on strengths. What did you notice throughout the week? Maybe you noticed that your daughter shared really nicely with the other sibling, acknowledging that your spouse gave you a break throughout the day, and really noticing these and showing appreciation and gratitude. The family meetings are also a time that the family gets together to solve problems. So I can send the family meeting, I have a bunch of these great handouts that I will also attach. But I'm not going to go, I want to be able to give you guys more tools, but I'm going to kind of share with you about these family meetings, and we're going to also talk about routines, and I'll share all of this information with you guys via email. The family meetings, you could also have the family mission statement, like Paul and Bonnie had talked about. I love that idea. What do you want to be as a family? What do we stand for as a family? So a family meeting is also a place that you can establish expectations and routines. And that leads me to the next tool that I want to talk about is establishing routines for yourself and kids. Paul and Bonnie also talked about this last Monday, but I'll kind of piggyback off of what they had said and go a little bit deeper into establishing these routines for kids. So structure is really important at this point with kids, because we're given this great gift, this opportunity to be home with our kids, to really hone in and focus on life skills and characteristics, and really looking at this from the perspective of it's an opportunity to teach our kids social emotional learning, problem solving, all types of different skills. But with this routine, for the preschoolers, let's talk about the preschoolers first. The preschoolers, it can be really overwhelming. Toddlers, preschool age, kindergarten age, it can be really overwhelming for kids to just hear us kind of barking these orders like, I need you to get dressed. Have you eaten breakfast? Did you brush your teeth? Did you do this? I need you to do this. Well, that's constant, right? Rapid fire all day long. Instead, how can we teach the skill, this intrinsic motivation, to come from the inside out, rather from us, the parents, from the outside in? So let's talk about routines, morning routines for kids. I recommend breaking up these routines morning, afternoon, and evening schedules. So we can call them visual schedules. I will also send you, I got to give a huge shout out to Taylor and Macy, my school psych field workers that work with me in my schools. They developed you can edit it, so a visual schedule for young kids for morning routines, afternoon routines, and evening routines. So I will also send that out. You can also look at Teachers Pay Teachers. You can Google it on Pinterest. You can make your own. But the purpose of these routine schedules, visual schedules, whatever you want to call them, is to teach independence with our kids. So morning routine, what would that look like? So for some families, you wake up out of bed. So let's just say we have a morning routine schedule. Wake up out of bed, the kids wake up, and it's make the bed. Okay, great. They can put a check mark, or you can move the little Velcro icon over to the done list. The next thing, brush our teeth. Other items that you can put on there, eat breakfast, read books, schoolwork. And it's a systematic approach, and it just allows kids to visually see what their tasks are during that chunk of day. So for the younger kids, like I said, I like breaking up morning, afternoon, and evening. For the older kids, they can obviously just have a checklist that they can just check it off. For younger kids, they may need the picture icons. A lot of kids like when parents take pictures of themselves and of the kids doing the job, and it really just it helps them connect to the task, and it helps them have more buy-in. So as a parent, instead of saying instead of saying make your bed, you're now just prompting. So you're saying what's next on your visual schedule, or what's next on your routine chart, whatever you want to call it. Remember, questions generate thinking. Commands and demands often cause kids to resist and put kids into brainstem. So asking questions. Okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent for a second. The questions generate thinking. It keeps kids into frontal lobe. So what are some questions that we can ask kids throughout the day? So I'm going to table the routine chart and I'll come back to that. Some questions that we can ask throughout the day with our kids. What do you think I'm thinking? What do you think you need to be doing? Maybe two siblings are arguing. Oh, what do you think that I just saw? Even if we didn't see it. Questions raise the odds of keeping kids in frontal lobe. It gets them to think, which is a skill. Some of the other ones, is there anything that I can do to help you right now? Do you need a hug? We need to connect with our kids. Positive discipline, the cornerstone of positive discipline is the relationship piece. So we'll talk more about the relationship piece, but it's always connection before correction. So we always want to connect with our kids and make sure that that relationship is strong before we're correcting our kids, because kids, when we're correcting them, it feels more as punishment. So we need to look at how we can change that into building skills. So solution focused. How can we solve this problem instead of constantly consequencing? Because think about your childhood growing up. How many times did our parents rub salt into the wounds? Like they consequenced the consequence because they wanted to send the message home or drill the message home. So instead, how can we keep kids in frontal lobe and to problem solve? Because the minute that we consequence, or I should say maybe not consequence, punish, because that tends to, consequences are punishments in disguise. How can we look at taking a different view of keeping kids in frontal lobe by helping guide them to solve the problem that they just caused? It's just a thought to think about. Okay, so going back to routines, I will send you out the information on the visual schedules for morning, afternoon, and evening. Okay, so establishing routines, family meetings I talked about, focusing on kids' behaviors versus skill, focusing on kids' behaviors versus building life skills. So let's talk about this for a second. Go ahead and put in the comment section some of the behavior challenges that you've had at home with your kids, maybe over the last week or maybe this past weekend. So most times I will get, kind of as these come through, most times I will get bickering, arguing, whining, not doing their jobs, yelling. How can we shift from focusing on kids' behaviors to building life skills and good characteristics? So how do we shift from behaviors to life skills? How can we build those life skills? Because I think about how do we prepare our kids for the real world that can be cruel and heartless? When our kids turn 18, what life skills do I want them to have? So how can we build those skills from now until they're 18 and they're out on their own? So we just have to think about that as well, and think about the way we interact with our kids, the way we talk with our kids. Oh, here's a sound bite. Because I tend to be a very loud person. My household, my family growing up was super loud. And so for me, my voice can come across as loud. And a tool that I have used when I'm in brainstem and I'm trying to shift from brainstem to frontal lobe, I immediately, it's just automatic with me now, I go to whispering. And when I whisper and I talk in a soft tone, it helps, one, de-escalate the problem, but it also helps me calm down. So whispering, and I always share this in my parenting classes because for some reason, it's always my strong-willed daughter who will shoot me into brainstem. And so what will I respond back with? when my daughter shoots me in a brainstem, I will go immediately into whispering. And I go, oh, Brittany, right now, I need a break. And she'll go, why do you always have to whisper? I hate when you whisper. Honey, this is a coping strategy for mommy. This helps me stay calm. And she can't stand it because she is not in control. But here's the thing, what can I control? My own thoughts and my own actions. So for me, whispering, because it also helps de-escalate the problem, and you don't want to be sarcastic about it. Whispering is a great tool because it also helps kids really listen up as well. Okay, relationships. Oh, there is no tool or technique out there that will make kids behave if we don't have relationships. Kids will do for adults if they feel cared, if they feel a connection and they feel loved and cared and their basic needs are met. So we have to think about investing the time into our relationship with our kids, just like we invest the time into our relationship with our spouses. And during this time of being home alone can be difficult. So some ideas that some parents have shared with me are, okay, date nights. How can you do a date night kind of being stuck at home? Well, maybe once your kids are in bed, do a movie or a special dinner, a special candlelight dinner. Oh my gosh, I remember doing that for my husband back in I met him at 18. Candlelight dinner, trying to be romantic during this shelter in place. With our kids, being intentional, spending quality time with them. So that means even for those who have teenagers, going in and sitting on your kid's bed and just being there and being present. They may be working, they may be doing, distance learning and, trying to do their own thing, but just being available for them, really powering down our phones and not being on social media or being on our phones constantly, putting our phones and maybe setting those expectations during that family meeting of putting your phones up and away. And maybe, like, for instance, in our household now, we have phones on the counter. And this happened, Brittany's still sleeping right now, so I'm going to try to be quiet about this. But this just happened in our household, which I could not believe it. We're 2 weeks in, going on 3 weeks into staying at home. And of course, right, kids in social media, and my daughter owns her own phone, pays for her own phone bill. And so obviously, being on social media, there are expectations and rules of the household, but she was on it a lot more being at home. So she came out to us the other day and she goes, you know what? Looking at social media is just causing me to be depressed. Who planted that seed with her a long time ago? I talk about research. And I think I'm going to go and take off and deactivate my social media accounts because it's causing me too much anxiety and stress. And I looked at her and I said, that's quite interesting. You know what? Do you mind? Listen to the question. Do you mind if I join you on this journey? And I will remove it from my phone, but I will use it on my computer when I need to for, my parenting stuff. And so we did it together. And again, it's establishing that connection with our kids. Like, I was so proud of her for doing that, and I was not even the one who initiated that. So investing in our in our relationships with our kids, spending quality time with them. So gosh, getting stir crazy being in the house, how can we get out of the house with our kids? Maybe one spouse can take one kid and stay in the house and you can go on a walk or go on a family walk. This has really brought families together and it has really helped me. Gosh, the mantra I've been using is, it has, oh my gosh, look, I have already forgotten, recalibrate. It's helped me kind of recalibrate and reprioritize my life. And I said in the very beginning, I'm a job hoarder. I like to stay busy. I love to serve. I love to give. And it's really changed the way I've looked at things, being home with the family. Brittany being away at college and now being home, it's brought that family unit back. Having family dinners together, oh my gosh. Just like Paul and Bonnie had said, like this has been, we're a sports household, so we traveled and kind of ate on the run because, you know, all the sporting events and school and, you know, it's all consuming, and it's really just put back into perspective what's a priority, which is the family and being together as a family. So serving others as a family. I love what Paul and Bonnie had said. The Bible says it's greater to give than to receive. So dropping off food to the neighbors or other family members, emailing them, or even better yet, writing letters and sending them in the mail. Such a nice surprise. I just sent out some letters with a $5 gift card for Starbucks when they open, and just put some, you know, funny thoughts and some you know, compliments and thoughts of appreciation that I have for individuals. This is a great time to reflect and put back into perspective what's important and connecting with others. Okay, I was talking about taking a strength-based approach. Here's another bit of information, and I'm being cognizant of the time. It's 10:50, so I will get to questions in just a second. But taking a strength-based approach with our family, with our spouses, and with our kids, this is a great resource. It's oh my gosh, sorry, boy, my brain is not firing today. viacharacter.org, VIA character.org is a great strength-based assessment that can be done with adults, with teens, with elementary age kids, and with younger kids. And I want to say it starts at maybe age 7. And this strength-based assessment, it's just questions, you're answering questions. So yes, no questions. And then it generates this report of what your top 5 strengths are based off of 25 strengths that we all have, but some to greater degrees. So what are the top 5 that you fly off of? And then you talk about your strengths. How can we as an individual, how can we as a family, but how can I as an individual serve others with the strengths that I have? So how can I fly off of our strengths? Because what happens is we tend to try to remediate the deficit. Especially with younger kids, right? Kids having meltdowns. So I noticed somebody just said, you know, how do we handle meltdowns? How do we handle our kids' frustration? So how can we look at it from the lens of a strength-based approach? Okay, so meltdowns cause us to go straight into brainstem. So let me finish about the brainstem versus the viacharacter.org. But really, how can we look at these top 5 strengths for each individual, and how do we use it in the community, at home, at church, and at school when we go back to school? How can we utilize our strengths as a family? Because we all bring to the table some great strengths. Okay, so let's talk about meltdowns. Okay, so how do we handle meltdowns? Meltdowns, kids are usually in brainstem, which cause us as parents to be also in brainstem. It's okay that kids cry. It's okay that kids are frustrated. So let's help them identify and name it. Remember, name it to tame it. I see that you're frustrated, and I'll talk as soon as you're calm. So you're helping them identify and you're validating their feelings, and then you are letting them know what you will do or allow. So here's the thing. If a kid is having a meltdown and it's hassling your auditory processing, what can you do? Remove yourself from the situation. Let the child have a fit right there. It's okay that the child cries. Here's what is really important, is that after the meltdown happens, we want to make sure that we come back and we can the kid can recover from this and we can reconnect. And that's that relationship piece. Giving them a big hug. We don't need to go into lectures, threats. We don't need to go into any of that because that'll just shoot them further into brainstem. So instead, let's just connect with them and love on them. It's not about lecturing them, telling them, why you would not allow something. But you're setting limits and parameters of where you will allow the meltdown and what you will do. So like I said, you can remove yourself, or you can ask the child to use the calming center or the whatever you want to call it. Let me take a look at some of the other questions that have come through. How do we help kids rein themselves in once we are deep in anger and upset and are seeing red? How do we keep kids rein themselves in? Again, I think it's that brainstem versus frontal lobe, giving them the visual of the anger thermometer. Yes, you can use the anger thermometer with young kids, 2 to 3 years old. You may want to make even your own anger thermometer. Instead of a 4-point scale, you may want to do a 3-point scale. So maybe happy is number 1, frustrated is number 2, and angry is number 3. With the young kids, I like to use, you can use, instead of numbers 1, 2, 3, I use a happy face at the bottom, a neutral face for the number 2, and the number 3, I like to make an angry face. You can also, again, take a picture of the kids smiling, being happy. You can take a picture of the kid just maybe being frustrated, and then a kid being angry, the same kid being angry. So that's another thought that you can do as well. So what can we do to help kids buy in to do schoolwork when your younger siblings' work looks more fun? I mean, that's hard. I mean, we can sit with our kids and do, especially during this time. I always talk about fostering that independence, but right now this is just such uncharted territory that we just want to make sure that we're connecting with our kids and we're meeting all the basic needs. And one of them is that connection, the relationship piece, the touch, the love, the being present and being intentional. So maybe sitting down and you have your own book. So with the older kids, you have your own book, and when you say no and keep pushing, testing. Okay, sorry, looking at more questions, is sitting and having your own work to do. But not your phone work. So not looking on your phone, maybe your computer, because it's just something about the phone. We're constantly, everyone's like, hop off. Why are you always on your phone? So maybe if it's like work that you're doing on the computer. But I mean, it's hard. Set the times. So for your older kid versus your younger kid, I mean, maybe you're doing it at the same time, maybe you're not. Maybe the older kid is doing homework at a separate time where you can be present with that one, and a different time for the younger one. But it just has to work for your family schedule. Okay, so you got, yes, the do2learn.org has the downloadable anger thermometer and anxiety thermometer. A lot of great resources on there as well. Besides the anger thermometer and anxiety thermometer. A question that I did have is, and I have a lot of parents asking about, during this time with COVID-19 and the levels of stress that we have as parents right now, causing maybe post-traumatic stress and parenting during this time. And again, I invite you to think about looking through the lens of maybe post-traumatic growth. What can we learn from this time? What can we take away? What can we change? What do we have control over? I think that's one thing with the post-traumatic stress is we feel out of control. This is a lot of anxiety that it's causing. And I invite you to think about giving yourself moments to look at the TV or the media for moments of time, but pull yourself away because that just goes down, it takes your brain down that negative path. So instead, Give yourself time to think about it, to stress about it, to be anxious about it, but then compartmentalize and let's put that aside. And now, maybe after you're watching the news, let's think about something to be grateful for. Think about what we're grateful for. What are we in control of? What do we as individuals, what can we control? We can control staying at home, keeping our family safe and keeping others safe. We have control over the food that we can eat at home. We have control over what we do at home, how we operate as a family. So we talk about what we have control over can help reduce some of that anxiety. So avoid the excessive exposure to media coverage. Okay, so a few other things that I was going to say, brainstem versus frontal lobe. Sorry, I just want to make sure I've answered some of the questions. And if I did not answer the questions, feel free to, you can email me at Kristen Baisden at yahoo.com, or you can look at my parenting website, which is powerofparenting.com, power-of-parenting.com. And I'll be having some online classes. I'm trying to serve my community and give back to my community. So I just want to be able to connect parents out there with resources and during this time because it's stressful, and provide some tools. I wish I had hours to talk with you and share with you more tools on how to help raise the odds of a situation, but I hope I touched bases on a few of the things that you can take away right away that will help equip you to lower your anxiety and your stress, take care of yourself, and think about shifting from that brainstem to frontal lobe, and some tools that you can do. Remember the I will statements. Minimal words is possible. Don't go into the lectures, threats, and warnings. Remember, anger, frustration, lecture, threats, and warnings feed the misbehavior. So instead, minimal words is possible. So thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I can pop on in another couple weeks with maybe some more specific topics that you want me to talk about. And feel free to reach out, and have a fabulous day. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.